my people. Welcome to lesson 3.2, determining species relatedness. This lesson has four parts in Amplify. We're going to skip one of them, but before you start this lesson, go back to Google Classroom, open up this posting, and I want you to watch this video, how paleontologists determine relatedness. So watch that video before you uh, watch this video anymore. So pause me, come back to me after you've watched this. All right, friends. So hopefully you had a chance to watch that video. What we're going to do is we're going to practice some of those things you saw in that video in today's lesson. So we're going to go to our warm-up, and for our warm-up, we have a model of a common ancestor and some common ancestor population and some descendant species. And basically, scientists have found this new species, species C, and they need to try to figure out where it goes. So you're going to help them with that. Where do you think this species C should go? So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the common structures and try to determine should it go in position 1 or position 2. So let's go down here and let's select one of those. And then what is one body structure you use to make your decision? Answer that. And then down below, just in a sentence or so, explain how this body structure helped you make your decision. So go ahead and do that. Pause the video and come back to me. We'll move on to part 2. Kidding. Wanted to help you out here. Wanted to make sure that we noticed that species B doesn't have a tail while species A does. So species C is probably more closely related to species A, so it should go in position 2. It was the tail that kind of gave that away. And your explanation should say something like that. Species A has a tail while species B doesn't. Species C most likely is closer related to species A. All right, friends, let's go to part 2, our sim. And this is just a visual to show you where you want to go. And these are the cetaceans here. And what you're going to do is we're going to be studying orcas and the blue whale. And we're going to be looking at some extinct creatures and trying to figure out where they should go on this tree within the sim. So the first thing we should do is open up our sim, press the tree, and navigate to the cetaceans branch. We need to be in cetaceans mode. So we're in cetaceans here. And we can see our fossil remains of our cetaceans on our map. But we're going to go to tree view. And I am going to bounce back and forth between Amplify and the sim because that's what we got to do. So study the blue whale and orca structures. Read the first question below and place a fossil in the location next to it. Then repeat that for each of the locations. So you'll notice here they're showing us there's locations 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if we go to our evolutionary tree and we navigate down to our cetaceans in the left-hand corner here, I'm just going to click this little button. And we're going to zoom in down this family tree and check it out. Mr. Roberts is a fossil. No. Let's study our blue whale and our orca. So here's their skeletal system. Looks very similar, although their head structure is very different. The front fins fairly different. Notice the orca have teeth, while the blue whales have this material called baleen, which is kind of like your fingernail, but it's basically a big filter so that they can swim through the ocean and filter out small little krill and other little critters living in the ocean and other sea life. Here's their appearance and their structures. And notice that the Orca does have a much more developed front limb structure, a bigger pelvis, and also notice the jaws and teeth um, kind of looks like some of the other creatures we've been studying. Okay, so going step by step here in the sim, we studied the blue whale uh, in orca structures. Now what we need to do is we need to take this fossil collection over here on the right, including Mr. Roberts, and we need to put those into the correct positions based on their structures um, in the tree. But it's going to be it's going to be a little easier because we're not going to just go all at once. We're going to take it two at a time based on these questions in Amplify. So the first one, which of these two species belongs in location one? Investigate the limbs and skulls. Okay, so we're going to look at the Durodon and the Cuchicitus. So let's do that. One of these two, either the Durodon here or the Cuchicitus, one of these two is going to go in location one right here. We have to decide that. One of the things that could help us is if we click these little eyes, we can get some information as to what those changes are down the road. So for the baleen whales and the toothed whales, that's a loss of external hind limbs and nostrils shifted farther back. So that means these are going to have, whatever goes here is going to have at least some hind limbs of some kind. It's also going to have very small limbs and nostrils shifted back. So let's look at both the Durodon and the Cuchicitus and see which ones are most closely related. So here's a Durodon. Again, here's an example of the fossil. Notice there's not a lot of fossil remains that are found, but they are able to piece together its structure based on those remains. So, because we're talking about this evolutionary tree here, we should also be thinking in terms, well, which one just kind of looks more like the creature further down on the list? So which one would be look most like the blue whale? So let's look at that. Let's look at those again. So we've got our Durodon, and we've got, I think it's Pakicetus we're doing. No, Cuchicitus. Sorry, Cuchicitus. Here's what they both looked like. So just looking at these two, notice the Cuchicitus has a longer front limb um, and more like paws, kind of. The Durodon still has like these little stubby back ones, but I would say this one's just a little bit more whalish than the Cuchicitus. So we can always test it, right? So even though I said I think it's I think it's Durodon, I can still take my Cuchicitus and drop it over here, and it'll tell me if I'm wrong. Ah, it did. You're wrong, Robert. Dude, you're wrong. Okay, so Durodon it is. So we would say Durodon is going to go in location one. So now we're going to do the same thing for Pakicetus and Cuchicitus. So let's do that. Let's get our Cuchicitus, Pakicetus. Okay, again, we're still pretty far down in the tree, so we should choose the animal with the most common structures. If we look at these structures, we can see they are both looking very land animal-ish to a certain degree. However, we can see Cuchicitus just looks a lot more aquatic, um, and their hind legs were not very powerful, not very helpful for swimming, so they relied on their tail a lot, right? So it's looking like this one should be the Cuchicitus. So we're going to drag Cuchicitus over, bounce back in the sim, select Cuchicitus. Now, Indohyus and Ambulocetus are the next two. So let's study that one. And Ambulocetus. Ooh, some of these are starting to look like our mystery fossil friends. Interesting. So, this is what they both looked like. This was kind of like a little raccoon creature. Um, this one looks like some sort of mutated seal and platypus creature. Um, so let's take a look at their structures. All right, Ambulocetus is looking a lot more aquatic. Um, so let's try it. Let's check it out. Let's see if we're right. Ambulocetus. Hey, let's bounce back and choose Ambulocetus, and now let's go to location 4. It's Pakicetus versus Indohyus. So Pakicetus, Indohyus. This one looks tricky. We might have to really dive in a little deeper here. Um, so we might actually have to read raccoon-like that 40 million years the limbs were good for walking on land. However, when scientists looked more closely, they found interesting clue that suggests these creatures spent most of their time in water. Fossil evidence shows the bones of the Indohyus had thick outer layer. Okay, so let's see. This animal lived about. It looked like a dog with hooves instead of paws. They lived along coastal regions of large, shallow ocean where Pakistan is today. Fossil evidence suggests they mostly lived on land, but hunted fish in shallow waters. Which one of these two is most like whale? I think we're gonna go with where's he at? This one. Oh, it's not right. So the Indohyus and the let's see, where's the Pakicetus? Pakicetus right here. So there we go. We've completed our tree. So position 4 was Pakicetus. No, yes, it was. We check again. Position 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pakicetus. Okay, cool. All right. So now we're going to go back and answer this final question here in the sim. Which species is Durodon more closely related? The blue whale or Ambulocetus? Which diagnostic structure can you use to show this? So it's the Durodon or and we're comparing that with the blue whale or the Ambulocetus. Um, Now we can go and look at our tree, and my thinking is telling me as we study these creatures and as we look at their structures, and as we look at their relation within this tree, I would say the Durodon shares more common features with the whale than the Ambulocetus. Uh, and one way we can tell is looking at our tree and clicking on these little eyes. So um, one of the differences, the hind legs are much smaller. The nostrils were shifted back. Um, so we could use that information to answer this question. Go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you for our next part. We're going to skip part 3 and go to part 4. Okay, so for part 4, we're going to open up our sim again. We're going to go to mammals mode this time, and we're going to go to the tree and navigate to the Loricea branch. And so let's do that. Let's see, we want mammals mode in our sim, so when we're here, we're going to find mammals. We're going to go to tree, and now we're going to go to the Loricea. Try it. All right. So what we're going to be studying here is we are going to be looking at the direwolf. We're going to be looking at the saber-toothed cat, and we're going to try to figure out which one of these two places they go. So let's go ahead and just look at the wolf and the lion, both present creatures. Let's look at their structures. So we can see the African lion um, has thicker shoulder blades, a longer pelvis, longer legs, in fact, and more robust, especially in the front legs, and well, actually the back legs too. It's just a beefier critter. Um, and the nostrils placed a little bit further up, while the gray wolf has a longer snout with the nostrils placed there at the end of the nose. So let's look at our dire wolf kitty. Dire wolf and our saber-toothed kitty. Study those. So here's our saber-toothed cat and our dire wolf. Notice the nostrils with the cat. It's kind of the same that we saw with the lion and the gray wolf, where the nostrils are higher up on the cat versus the dire wolf that's further down on the snout. And even though dire wolves were pretty buff, if we compare these two structures, we see that again, the cat has just a little bit thicker bone structure, especially in the front limbs here. So I think our thinking is getting us close to the point where we can choose where those should go on the evolutionary tree. I'm going to put the dire wolf here with the gray wolf and the saber-tooth kitty with the African lion. Notice these little crosses are showing us that these creatures are extinct. So now that we've done that, we're going to answer these last two questions. What are some structures that are shared between all four species? So we could say, well, they're quadrupeds, they share a tail, they have, teeth that are at different lengths, but still kind of made for being predators. And now, what diagnostic shared structures helped you decide where to place the dire wolf and the saber-toothed cat? So what were the key structures, the key shared structures, those diagnostic structures that helped us figure out how the wolf was more related to the wolf and how the cat was more related to the cat? But not just saying the wolf is related to the wolf and the cat is related to the cat. What structures do they share that make us think that? So friends, after you answer that question, push hand in and you are done with lesson 3.2. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. And don't forget,